Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. Elon Musk won a battle in the lawsuit with Twitter, but the war is not over yet. Will deep blue New York State elect a Republican governor? It is possible. Europe will be in the midst of a new round of turmoil these days. Britain has a new prime minister, which will bring a series of policy changes. Russia has officially halted the delivery of gas from Nord Stream 1, which undoubtedly drops a shock bomb on Europe's energy crisis. Can Europe survive the winter smoothly? The Czech Republic is already upset about the consequences of the government's support for EU sanctions against Russia. So, how long can the populations of other countries continue to remain silent about the sanctions on Russia? Okay, let's get into it. Elon Musk has won the first step in his lawsuit against Twitter. On Wednesday, a Delaware judge said that Musk could amend his counterclaim in order to include the allegations that are in the whistleblower's complaint against Twitter's former security chief. The judge, however, denied Musk's request for a delay in the trial. Chancellor Kathleen McCormick made the decision after an hours-long hearing on Tuesday. During the hearing, Twitter and Musk argued orally about their positions on whether to include allegations against Peter Zatko, the former security chief who was fired by Twitter. In the whistleblower complaint that was made public last month, Mr. Zatko accused Twitter of failing to protect sensitive user data and of lying about its security problems. The judge cited a rule of the Chancery Court in which a leave to amend should be freely given when justice so requires. Chancellor McCormick said that she would set parameters around additional information requests that are related to the new claims, and she would maintain the current trial schedule. President Trump confirmed on Wednesday that FBI agents took his complete and highly confidential medical file and history during the August 8th raid at Mar-a-Lago. In a post on Truth Social, he wrote, "Not only did the FBI steal my passport in the FBI raid and break-in of my home, Mar-a-Lago, but it has been learned through court filings that they also improperly took my complete and highly confidential medical file and history." But then President Trump switched gears and he said that now people will see that I'm very healthy, an absolutely perfect physical specimen. While the FBI raid has been dominating the news headlines, President Trump has not been focusing all of his energy on dealing with the FBI. He has instead spent more effort on supporting Republican candidates for office. His fundraiser this past weekend to help Republican New York gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin was quite successful. According to the New York Post, President Trump helped Zeldin raise some $1.5 million for his campaign against Democratic incumbent Governor Kathy Hochul. New York is traditionally a Democrat state, and so a Republican winning in New York would be considered a major upset for the Democrats. Zeldin insists, though, that he can still become New York's first GOP governor since George Pataki won in 2002. It was predicted that George Pataki was going to lose by 11.5 points just the week before the election, but George Pataki went on to make history and he became a Republican governor in New York. The same miracle is not out of the question for Lee Zeldin. According to an August poll by Siena College, Hochul is ahead by 14 points. However, the situation is changing. A new poll by the Trafalgar Group shows that the gap between the candidates is narrowing, with Hochul holding only a 4.4-point lead. Prior to this fundraising event, according to campaign filings from July, Hochul's campaign had $11.7 million on hand in comparison to $1.6 million for Zeldin. But in the past weekend alone, Zeldin has received about $1.5 million from supporters. With 2 months still remaining before the midterm elections in November, a lot can happen. Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss is about to take office. According to the news hub AFP, Liz Truss has not only allies, but also she has many enemies in her hardline approach to foreign policy. According to Truss, she is ready to fight with the European Union, Russia, and China. Truss will double her efforts to support Ukraine more so than her predecessor. Truss said back in April, "We will continue to further accelerate the pace to drive Russia out of all of Ukraine." She claimed that the Russians should also withdraw from Crimea, which was annexed in 2014. She has been equally tough on the Chinese Communist Party. In late July, Truss pledged to strengthen economic and trade ties with the Commonwealth in order to counter China's growing malign influence. Truss criticized China's human rights record in Xinjiang and Hong Kong, as well as its economic protectionism. Truss summoned the Chinese ambassador to protest Communist Party military exercises near the Taiwan Strait, but she has no plans to visit Taiwan as Prime Minister. According to AFP, at times, the EU has become a bigger enemy than Beijing for Truss. Truss has become a staunch supporter of Britain's exit from the European Union. Truss was the legislative architect of the overturning of the agreement that was reached between London and Brussels regarding Northern Ireland. This is a key part of the UK's Brexit deal with the EU. With regard to Britain's relationship with the United States, Truss, the new British Prime Minister, is aligned with Margaret Thatcher, the Conservative Party icon, regarding most of her policies. However, the comparison stops at the transatlantic relationship to which Thatcher was truly committed. Russia said on Friday, September 2nd, that gas leaked from the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, meaning that it will remain shut after a 3-day maintenance outage last week. Benchmark gas prices spiked 30% when markets opened on Monday. Stocks also fell, and the euro fell to a 20-year low. Europe accuses Russia of weaponizing energy supplies. Reuters reports that European businesses and households have been hit by a sky-high energy price, reinforcing expectations of a recession. Investors believe that the European Central Bank, the ECB, is expected to raise interest rates by 75 basis points at Thursday's meeting. Reuters said that the Eurozone is almost certainly entering a recession. Many European power distributors have collapsed, and some major generators may already be in danger. The price of natural gas is now 400% higher than it was a year ago. EU governments are pushing for a package of billions of euros in size to prevent utilities from falling on hard times amid a liquidity crunch and to protect European households from soaring energy bills. In fact, the energy crisis in France is also so severe that it threatens even the most important scientific experiments. Xavier Piachacic, the head of the company that is operating France's power grid, has warned that the country needs to reduce electricity consumption by 15% at peak hours this winter in order to avoid power cuts. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne raised the possibility of rotating 2-hour power cuts in a recent interview. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, or CERN, is planning to shut down some of its particle accelerators, including the world's biggest particle accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider. CERN consumes about 200 megawatts of electricity during peak operation. This is nearly a third of the electricity consumption of Geneva, which is the second most populated city in Switzerland. The organization is drafting a plan to shut down a few of its particle accelerators during periods of peak demand. France has long been a top European exporter of electricity. Hitting an electricity crisis is a new situation for France. It's mainly the result of France's own policies. About 67% of France's electricity comes from nuclear power. Over half of its 56 nuclear reactors are already shut down for repairs and maintenance. France had also closed several of its oil and coal-fired plants in order to meet green energy targets, but many of the proposed renewable energy projects have been delayed. Of course, Russia's reduced gas supply has also more or less contributed to the energy deficit. For the first time since 2012, France became a net power importer in 2022, according to data from the consultancy group Anapsys. Tens of thousands of protesters took to the street across the Czech Republic on Saturday to criticize the government, NATO, and the European Union. Police estimate that 70,000 people went to Prague's Vincencelas Square in order to protest. They said that the protesters were peaceful. The event co-organizer said, "The purpose of our demonstration is to demand change, mainly to address the issue of energy prices, especially electricity and gas, which will damage our economy this fall." The protests come a day after the government survived a no-confidence vote. Soaring electricity prices have fueled inflation that has reached levels not seen in 3 decades. The opposition initiated the no-confidence vote by claiming that the government was not acting on inflation and energy prices. Unsatisfied with the outcome of the no-confidence vote, the protesters demanded the resignation of the coalition government led by Prime Minister Peter Fiala. They also accused the government of kowtowing to the EU and NATO on various issues. They not only accused the government's ongoing sanctions against Russia of pushing up prices in the country, but they also accused the EU of pushing an extremist agenda related to climate change. But Fiala accused the organizers of having ties to Russia. On September 2nd, G7 finance ministers unanimously agreed to set a price cap on Russian oil. The Russian energy minister said that unilateral restrictive measures taken by Western countries against Russia are triggering disruptions in energy supplies and are causing world energy prices to rise. The rise in energy prices has triggered widespread inflation in the West. High energy costs have forced some energy-intensive industries, including fertilizer and aluminum manufacturers, to scale back production. On Monday, the euro fell below 0.99 against the dollar, which is the lowest point in 20 years. If the war between Russia and Ukraine continues and the West continues to impose sanctions on Russia, perhaps we will see more European countries in turmoil. More than 13 million Chilean residents voted on Sunday to take a stand on the proposed new constitution. According to official figures, about 62% voted against it and 38% voted for it. Opponents believe that the Constitution would tilt the country too far to the left. The new charter envisions a radical leftward tilt in the Southern American country, expanding the role of government and promoting an economic model that would reduce inequality and help raise standards for the poor. The result of the referendum was that the new constitution could not be approved by the population. Many Chileans celebrated that victory on Sunday night. At a hotel in Santiago, a group of opponents of the constitution waved Chilean flags in the air and chanted, "Chile is a free country." The revision of the Constitution began in late 2020 when 80% of Chileans voted to draft a new constitution. Prior to that, in 2019, protests erupted in the streets of Chile with workers and the middle class who were suffering from high prices and low wages, feeling strongly that the government had forgotten about them. The politicians negotiated a consensus to create a new constitution to resolve the conflict, but apparently the new constitution did not unify the country. Rather, it created even greater divisions. The over 150-member constitution group consisted mainly of left-leaning members. The draft constitution that they eventually proposed was extremely ambitious. It focused on many of the priorities of the left-wing social movements that are led by young Chileans, such as gender equality, environment protection, indigenous and gay rights, and legal access to abortion. This was the reason for the right wing and the centrist vote against it. According to an estimate by Chilean economists, the new constitution would have caused Chile's gross domestic product to fall by between 9 and 14%. The new constitution defines Chile as a plural national state, meaning that the 11 indigenous people, which make up nearly 13% of the country's 19 million people, would be granted a high degree of autonomy with their own governance structure and court systems, which is tantamount to a state of their own. At the same time, the new constitution proposes to decentralize the central government and to replace the Senate with local chambers. Many critics argue that these proposals would divide Chile. Other reforms involving the country's institutions were also considered too drastic. The widespread defeat of the Constitution dealt a serious blow to the country's young left-wing president, Gabriel Boric. He is the most left-leaning leader in Chile since Salvador Allende. Now, Boric will have to spend more time dealing with the aftermath of the referendum. At the same time, he faces a number of pressing social issues, including soaring inflation and the improving of the economy. At this point, Chile will continue to face an uncertain future. After the United States, the Australian government is also concerned about TikTok's collection of user data. On September 5th, Claire O'Neill, the Minister for Home Affairs and the Minister for Cybersecurity, ordered the Cybersecurity Department to investigate the collection of user data by TikTok. Digital 2022 is a report released by cyber data research firm We Are Social. The report shows that TikTok, which is the international version of Jitterbug, has 7.38 million adult users in Australia. This is second only to Facebook, including Facebook Messenger and Instagram. In July, a white paper data investigation on TikTok released by the internet security company called Internet 2.0 reported that the overseas version of TikTok by Jitterbug was collecting a lot of user data. The TikTok app in Apple iOS has a connection to servers in China. TikTok in Android collects data on all the other running programs. O'Neill called on Australians who use TikTok to seriously consider what data may have been collected from them. She said that the government needs to better inform Australians about how their data is being collected and what is being collected and why they should care about it. It's not about TikTok data collection, she said. It's a bigger issue, and as Australians, we should identify how we deal with technology that was invented in an authoritarian state. Liberal Senator James Patterson, who is the spokesman for the opposition party on cybersecurity and anti-foreign interference, called on the government to not rule out a ban on TikTok. He argued that some of the privacy and cybersecurity risks in apps like TikTok could potentially be successfully mitigated by regulation. Even tougher measures, including a ban on TikTok, are foreseeably the only satisfactory solution. And this is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for your support on Front Page. If you want more Front Page, you can also join us on our membership site for in-depth reports and sensitive news that you cannot see on YouTube. Your donation and your membership subscription are really helping us to continue to tell you the truth. Every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you are still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of our viewers don't get notifications of our videos anymore from YouTube. So please follow us on Telegram, Gab, Getter, and on Truth Social for the latest updates. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.